Hey Scorpio Ascendant, it's Nicole from outerinnerspace, and in this video we're going to be talking about your chart ruler, or in your case your chart rulers, because the way I see it is that since your ascendant sign sets up the arrangement of your natal chart houses and basically sets the atmosphere, when you tune into the qualities of the ruler of your ascendant sign, which is your chart ruler, then you can kind of tune into this baseline frequency, this core vibration, because all your placements and your aspects in your natal chart have their own energetic quality, which are activated at different times according to transits or cosmic conditions or where you are on your soul journey. But the vibration of your chart ruler is like this consistent undertone to all those different aspects. And so when you tune into those qualities, then it can really help you come back to a place of equilibrium and back to your center. And it really helps when you're feeling scattered or confused or like you're spinning your wheels. You can kind of see the chart ruler as a spirit guide that kind of helps you get back on track and helps you tune into what's really true for you. And I also find that tuning into the qualities of the chart ruler helps with things like identifying your own personal timeline and your own pacing, which is very unique to you. So the notes that you see in this video you can grab from my website, and there's a link to that below if you are interested. And I hope you find some value in these ideas today, Scorpio Ascendant. So the first thing I would suggest would be to have a look to where Mars and Pluto are placed in your natal chart, because that's going to add an extra dimension to the story. So after you've had time to digest some of the ideas that we'll talk about in this video, then it's definitely worth bringing in those details, the placement of those signs and the sign that they're in your natal chart, because that's going to add an extra dimension to the story and it's going to make these ideas more personal to you. So for this chart ruler series, I did a little drawing of how I see the timeline, like a visual look at the vibration in terms of timeline for each of the ascendant signs. And as you can see for you guys, there's kind of a lot going on because with Scorpio energy, it's a very multi-layered energy, and there's a lot more going on that appears, and there's a lot going on at one time, and that has to do with both the supercharged energy of Mars and also the unconscious and unseen energy of Pluto. So for you guys as a Scorpio ascendant, there's this consideration to keep in mind that while Mars is driving your more immediate desires and these passions that you can feel on a surface level, there's also the same kind of depth that's going on in your deep subconscious that you're not always exactly aware of or how that's driving you. And so I find for Scorpio energy, and I have a lot of Scorpio energy, I have Sun, Mercury, Mars and Pluto in my 10th house, that giving yourself some grace to understand that you're kind of working on many timelines at once, and while you can sometimes feel overwhelmed with that Mars desire and that real drive to get to where you want to go, there is this Pluto timing that comes into play where things are happening on this soul time, and that's something that can't be rushed or quite often understood because it's way out of our control. So just giving yourself the grace, like if you can take a moment now to feel this energy shield around you, like a perimeter of a few feet, just, covering the body, and just taking an exhale and really feeling into the body the idea that you really are working in a way that's very multidimensional and multifaceted. So I find just giving yourself the acknowledgement of that, it can kind of help you get out of your own way in this idea of, feeling that you're not where you're supposed to be, or things aren't playing out in the way that your timing dictates. But just understanding that there's a longer timeline that's in play with Pluto, and it's very unconscious too. So there could be this distortion or this disconnect between how things play out in reality and how you feel deep down that Pluto subconscious energy that it should be. And then I find that if you can kind of come back to those ideas, then that chaotic energy can dissipate into a more consistent wave. And I don't mean chaotic in any kind of judgmental scene, it's just my own personal experience. I get that Scorpio energy can be so driven and it can be so passionate, and oftentimes how you feel and what you know to be true doesn't match up in this 3D world. So it's just about realizing like there is a plan in place and you are a very important part of that plan as a Scorpio Ascendant, because you have all these perceptions and these feelings and this awareness of truth, but often that's in conflict with what we see and what we experience, like when we're interacting with others or just what we see happening in society. But, you know, part of your reason for being here as a Scorpio Ascendant is to work on like transmuting that discord. So something I saw recently, which I thought was pretty awesome, was that the symbol for Mars, as well as being the symbol for man, is also a symbol that they used in ancient times for alchemy. And I thought that was so beautiful, thinking about Scorpio energy, because that process of alchemy, of reconciling those wounds inside of you and turning them into something beautiful, like when you think of an alchemist turning lead into gold, that's like turning your deep hurts into liberation, you know, your pain into art. Do you know what I mean? And so that's kind of what you're here to learn, and what you kind of are here to go through is that process of transforming the energy, because energy is never stuck. I get with fixed water and Scorpio energy how it can very often feel like you're stuck, because there's all these repeating patterns and experiences that play out in your mind and in your experiences. But when you look closer, you kind of start to recognize that there's a common theme, or a few common themes amongst all those things. And often that has to do with value and valuing yourself and claiming your own power. And so when we do this work, we get to recognize how much power that we have, and that activates that phoenix aspect of the scorpion. So, and it's tricky, I know, but because we have this perception of what things should be, or what is actually true, and then we're seeing things in society or in our relationships where people are wearing a mask and not speaking the truth, and often that is just stemmed from fear. But being able to recognize that your own fears and being able to change them, that's how you become the leader, and how you make your mark in this world, by being the example and working on that transmutation of energy. And that's kind of part of the reason why you're a Scorpio Ascendant and you've got this Mars and Pluto energy, is because of that alchemical power that you have to transmute and to turn what has really, you know, influenced you in a very painful way into what actually makes you the super potent being that you are. And it's kind of about taking that responsibility and bringing it back to you, and understanding that whatever has transpired in a way that you perceive it against you, or where you were the victim of something, it's about coming back to understanding that you are a sovereign being and you can claim your power back at any time. But it's the perception that you need verification or validation of your feelings in order for them to be true, and that's just not the case. They are what they are, and that's exactly yours. And it's about, for Scorpio Ascendant and for Scorpio energy specifically, is learning to process your energy and your feelings, and knowing that no matter how, even if they are lower end vibrational feelings like jealousy or rage, that's perfectly valid. But it's about realizing that's just one point on the spectrum, and you're never stuck there. It's just this idea that you're stuck that kind of keeps you stuck, that fixed water. And I heard this really beautiful thing once by OJC Astrology, and she says that Scorpio energy can freeze a feeling in a situation where things are really heightened, or it just really hurt, or it's just super triggering, and save it for later when your soul has evolved more to be able to process it. And I find that to be very true for Scorpio energy. So it's about doing the work to learn how to process your feelings. And one of the first steps in that is to not shame yourself for feeling as intensely as you do, because that's your superpower. That's a huge gift. But when we perpetuate these states by applying shame and saying things like, I shouldn't be feeling this way, why am I still feeling this way? That's what keeps you stuck. It's like you just getting in your own way and like not letting yourself go beyond it. And really it just comes down to doing things like breath work and body work, and really just giving you space to feel what you're feeling and giving that room to breathe and applying that level of curiosity to it. And that can just help emotions flow through you faster, and it prevents you from taking on and, you know, storing it inside. And that's kind of part of what you're here to learn, is how to process that, because a lot of us aren't taught how to. And so if you are ever in a situation or a state where you're feeling very frenetic and you've got all this energy, like, you know, static inside of you, it's a matter of recognizing that you're in a heightened emotional state and doing things to kind of bring your brainwaves down. So when you are in that frenetic state, that's a state of high beta waves. And when you're in that state, you're kind of just bouncing off all these ideas that have been stored and well practiced in the neocortex, in the frontal lobe. And this is all past experiences and stored memories and stuff that's already been done again and again and again. But the idea is to come back and do a deep breath and a long exhale and come back into your body, and recognizing that you are safe in this moment and you are not under threat, and doing the deep breathing to come back to the slower brain waves, ideally alpha, which is more of the subconscious, unconscious, and from that place more of your soul wisdom and understanding can come through, and solutions to how you're feeling can come through, and just tempering those brain waves, realizing that there are other options. And it comes back to coming back to the body and knowing that you're not actually under threat. It's just this thought that's triggered these emotional reactions inside of you, especially with Mars being first house energy, and that is the body. And so for you guys, a really beautiful thing is doing body work and tending to your physiological state, because when you think about it, when we're young or when we're too inexperienced and haven't learned how to process our emotions, they just get stored in different areas of the body. And so you might feel certain blocks or cracks or constant ailments or strains in the body. And that's these emotions that have been stored there that are kind of wanting your attention, because all they ever wanted was for you to look at them and acknowledge them and let them flow like they should, because it's just a wave. It's a wave of energy. But when we ignore them and suppress them, we keep them inside, and then, you know, they become compacted and small, and then you kind of create these cellular clusters basically. And so doing body work like massage or acupuncture or seeing an osteopath, like anything that moves the energy around the body and disrupts those established patterns, can really help kind of tune into that Pluto energy, where it's very unconscious and it's unseen and it's not really based on any mental patterns that are happening in the mind. But when you do that kind of thing with that Mars energy and that transmutation aspect, then you're kind of breaking up that energy without the need to go in further necessarily and pick apart all the details. And that can be very valuable. And even if, you know, it's not a matter of seeing a professional, but just tending to your body in your own way, whether that be through touch or dancing or yoga or walking, and just circulating the energy around your energy field and doing breath work and being quite intentional as you do this by, you know, just setting the intention to move this energy around. If I start thinking, I'm just gonna sweep that to the right and just be in my body. And then as you start to build that relationship, when you have experiences where you do have these emotional situations that you need to go through, then the processing doesn't become a matter of like taking it in and taking it on and keeping it stored up inside. It just becomes a process of maintenance. So it's super important for you guys to develop a healthy relationship with your body, and that's tricky for a lot of us because we're brought up in a society where, whether that be our parents who have shamed a certain part of their body and we've learnt that behavior, or whether we've played the comparison game with other people about where we're supposed to be or that kind of thing. Like, we're brought up to hate it, but our body is an antenna and it's communicating with us, especially for you guys, Scorpio, like the vibrations and the tense muscles. This is all information. But when we hate our body, we don't trust those messages and we're missing out, and that cuts off our intuition in like a massive, massive way. So things like touch and just letting the body flow and just developing a more loving relationship with the body, Mars, is really key for you guys. And just as a side note, if you're a woman, I've created this really wonderful resource called Periods, Brainwaves and Astrology, and it's about tuning to these natural cycles of the body and the cycles of the universe to help connect you to your body and to your rhythm. And there's a link to that below if you're interested. So another way, Scorpio, is because of that soul time that you guys are working on and the multidimensional nature of you as a Scorpio, that 8th house power where things are happening according to kind of karma and past lives and this kind of thing. Doing things where you can drop out of that high beta range of, you know, your learnt processing, your repetitive thoughts into the more unconscious realm, the Pluto element, by doing things like vision quests and guided meditations and just visual meditations, or even creative pursuits where you just let your unconscious take over and create things. That can really help transmute that energy as well, and just kind of allowing your physical body to be subject to flow. That can be a really beautiful healing aspect for you. And as you do this, just kind of don't put any limits on like how it should be done. So moving the body when you're feeling like you've been stuck in a position a lot, it all comes down to doing the breath work as well and letting that energy flow around you and calming the vessel, because when you're in that heightened state, you're just vibrating this quick energy, and when you're in that state, there's no room for the divine inspiration to come through. Another thing, Scorpio, is going back to that idea of being on soul time with Pluto, is with the Mars energy that can be this very immediate desire to go so fast towards what it is that you want, and when things get in your way, it can be really off-putting because you're so sure of where you want to go, but then there are these barriers, and whether that be a subconscious projection of your own fears preventing you from getting there, if you can kind of come back to the knowing that for music to work, there needs to be silence between the notes, right? So when you are feeling like you're blocked, it's again just coming back to your power within and knowing that there's going to be a time for all of this. You wouldn't be here with these desires if they weren't available to you. But if you're kind of getting in your own way and shaming yourself or belittling yourself because you're not further ahead to that vision that you see so clearly, that just keeps you stuck in that loop. So just noting that it is okay, even though you do have these strong desires, it's about learning to temper them to create a more harmonious wave within you. And when you are in that wave, then you become a more magnetized being, that magnetic aspect of Scorpio. And you know, you attract situations and pathways that can kind of get you there in a different way, but it really did require you to sort of slow down that static vibe. So coming back to the now and just remembering that with Pluto, you're on soul time. So just letting that wave temper out and soothing yourself. And kind of when you start to do those things, then you develop trust in yourself, and you cultivate that relationship with your soul and your higher self. And then those messages from those parts of you become more clear and your intuition refines. And another thing for Scorpio Ascendants is that you guys have this incredible ability to see things that aren't necessarily manifest and see the truth, and you have this really high ideal of how things could be and how things should be. But oftentimes when we try to bring those to our social groups or just out in the world, there's this social conditioning that these kinds of concepts aren't welcome because they're a harsh truth in a way. So it's about bringing that power back to you and knowing what you know and feeling what you feel and trusting what you feel and not needing that external validation to corroborate what you're feeling. Because when we kind of seek outside of ourselves for proof that what we're feeling is true or accurate, and that gets denied for whatever reason, then we kind of are wondering, okay, so can I not trust myself? And that trust detail is so important for Scorpio, but it always comes from within. So for you, where you can and where it's healthy, just keeping your intuitive hits, to yourself and just seeing how things play can be really helpful in developing that intuitive faculty, because ultimately the truth will come out in the end. So it's about trusting the process in many ways. And because of that 8th house energy, where you're living on many timelines at once, like you are very much in the past where certain things have happened, like really significant emotional events, and you're also in the future of this, maybe it isn't even a clear vision of where you want to be, but more of a vibrational knowing of there's something more out there and I'm not a match to it yet. But again, it's about coming back to the center and doing the things in the present moment to work on getting yourself out of your own way. So calming those brain waves, coming into the body, developing that relationship with yourself, developing the trust, and also extending your concept of timing to be more true to your own vibration rather than social constructs of where you should be, then all these things compounded day to day will help you get to that vibrational place of where you want to be. And just essentially, it won't really matter that you're not there yet, because you just feel 10 times better that you're not circulating in these old injustices or any kind of feeling of being wronged. And again, like going back to that idea of keeping some things to yourself, when you kind of do that kind of thing and develop that trust, your energy field just refines, because you're creating this harmonious feedback loop by what you're thinking and what you're experiencing and just the situations that you put yourself in, that being those which actually enrich you and don't detriment your spirit. And then your energy field becomes very potent and magnetic, and you work to alchemize the details and you are creating that gold. And so it becomes a matter of less is more, because your energy speaks for itself and you don't have to speak as much. So less is more is a really beautiful thing for Scorpio energy. And the last thing I'll leave you with, Scorpio Ascendant, is the idea of having a look at what your earth sign is. So the earth sign isn't something that's spoken in astrology that often, but it's the work of Chrissy Blaze, who wrote this book called Earth, Astrology's Missing Planet. And basically it speaks about how all the planets in the solar system and in our natal chart give off this energetic vibration, but the planet that we're on, Earth, it's giving off its own vibration, and that's what's most immediate and connected to us. And so the earth sign is the opposite to your sun sign by the very degree, because the sun revolves around the earth, or the earth revolves around the sun, however you want to see it. But when you tune into the qualities of your earth sign, and I have some information about this on my website, I'll link it below, but basically it's about that coming back to the now and coming back to your purpose here on earth by grounding yourself here in the present moment and coming down to those alpha waves. And then you kind of create this connection with your place here in the world, and you ground those intense emotional energies, and you can kind of recalibrate to the natural cycles. And then that really helps with your sense of timing and, your own cadence, and it also purifies your energy field. And that can be a really wonderful practice for the well-being of your body and your emotional and spiritual state, because you are here for a purpose, and it's a really important and powerful one as a Scorpio. And so just doing all these things which kind of bring your power back to you and that central part of you, which is where you're most potent, then the practice of that, it really does wonders in resetting your energy and helping you understand that you are so much more powerful than what you probably currently believe. So Scorpio Ascendant, I'm going to leave this here. If you're interested in more stuff like this, I do fortnightly self-healing and energy and astrology notes on my Patreon. And I really hope you found some value in this, and I wish you well.